Meditation clears the mind field, and astrology brings what is hidden to the surface. And these two practices together are chef's kiss. Peace, my name is Stacy Patrice. Welcome back to my channel. Wanted to come on here and just talk to you all today about the practice of meditation with the practice of self-study through astrology. As some of you may know, I am currently um, hosting a course that of a curriculum that I created about self-studying through sidereal astrology, and we will have um, a new group coming in April, and so stay tuned and stay subscribed for information about that. But in the meantime, the reason why this course came forward was because of my meditations. I have attempted to, teach people astrology and do consultations and all of these things for so long. But it wasn't until I started meditating that things got ultra clear. I already had a meditation practice, but not a daily practice. I didn't have a daily practice of meditation where I just naturally felt like, yes, every day this is it until June of last year. And the reason why that came about was because of what I saw in my astrology chart. I noticed that there are a lot of mental things happening in my chart. And by mental things, I mean I have a lot of words, a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, a lot of expressions, creativity, a lot of synthesis, a lot of things that I'm learning and picking up. And it's important to kind of clear those things so that you can see what was actually there and what actually resumes, what the residue is of all those things can get cleared, and you just have the base of what's most important. And this is important to me because I don't know if you all notice this, but there are a lot of people who are into sciences and into doing things that are spiritual practices. They're into doing them, but they don't bring the spirituality to the practice that they have. So, for instance, imagine someone who is giving you information about yourself, giving you information about who you are, but they don't have a clearing mechanism. But they do this every day, and they do it for multiple people, and they do it for people they vet and people they don't vet, and this is their job and this is their life. And so they kind of become a cachet of all of these impressions and all of these things that are happening. They kind of become a psychic record of what's going on with everyone. And so, how do they get back to themselves? How do they know when they are the ones talking? And a lot of them will tell you, well, I don't look to see if I'm the one talking. I let spirit speak. And that's true. Spirit can speak. But what filter is spirit coming through? Right? What filter is spirit coming through? If spirit is coming through a dirty filter, then what is being given and what is being said is not as clean and as pristine as it would be if it were coming from a pure place, right? So we have to think about that as well when we're thinking about things that are of a spiritual nature, that are, as in the yogic terms, we call it sattvic, as of a sattvic nature. Sattva is like the highest, level and octave of, energy, vibration, cleanliness, all of these things. It is, the light body, right? It is the light. So if we are listening to someone who is speaking through those lenses, then that sattva may not be there. It might be a heavier energy, right? It might be a heavier energy, more active energy, a spicier energy, right? Which means that we can see in people's behaviors and in people's ways of being, whether they're doing their own healing, whether they're doing their own cleaning. It doesn't stop them from being a channel. It doesn't stop them from getting information and having information, but there may be a little bit of gunk in the mechanism that slows down the way that things flow, that maybe causes some kind of adhesion to the way things flow. And it's so important, not only as spiritual practitioners, but as spiritual people, that you cleanse your energy, you cleanse your mind field in particular. If you are trying to imagine and receive the energy of the cosmos, then one of the main things you have to do is clear out all of that gunk that comes from absorbing, and sensing and feeling everyone else's thing. And so some people work this out in solitude, which is a beautiful way to meditate. But some people also work this out through spiritual practices, through things that they do on a ritualistic nature. So this is why meditation is one of those things for me. Now, in your chart, if you've received a sidereal astrology or Vedic consultation, you may also have seen or have found out about those things in your chart as well, that you are a person who needs to meditate or do certain practice to ease your mind field. But again, this is why it's so important to self-study, because you could just be giving remedies and recommendations to everyone else and not doing the very thing that helps you clear yourself so that you can be a better instrument for the divine. And the reason that I'm saying this for my life is because it does make a difference. It does help me sort. Meditation helps me sort. It helps me to untangle the knot and to start to sort those things that don't belong with me versus those things that are me. And I start to be able to see the difference in the degrees and grades of difference in astrological terms, of what is happening with me and what is for me, what is trying to speak through me, what is karma, all of those things, as opposed to, just what somebody said, what I saw somebody do. Those things also are there because I'm observing and perceiving and feeling all day. But then it becomes like, yeah, but then when do you clear your own cache? When do you make sure that those cookies are not following you as you encounter, work with other people? And this is very challenging in the astrology space because remember, people who are into astrology are into pattern recognition. They're into pattern recognition and systems. They're into the math of it, the science of it, the art of it, and the spirituality of it, typically, or one of those in spades, right? They're into different aspects of the astrological arts. And astrological arts, if done right and done well, can be a healing art. It can also be a way of contacting the divine when your own energy is clogged. Someone else can help open those pathways up and see it with you and hopefully cleanly for you without interjecting their own thing in it. And this is one of the beautiful gifts of meditation and self-study together. Self-study is one form, and then the concentration that comes from meditation being another form. So another thing that you can do when you pair meditation and astrology is that you can meditate pre-working with your own chart, your own space, but then you can also do it post. You can also, look at your chart, study your chart, and then kind of untangle and go into that meditation and just see what's there, what comes up, what you feel. Now, I like to pair, if you really want to go there, I like to pair meditation, astrology, lighting a candle, and also showering. Those four together make a nice, seamless, circuit that seems to like really grasp me. And sometimes I'll add some tea to it. I'll add a couple of herbs, and I approach herbs in a very intuitive way. It's like, what do I want to see? What do I want to feel? You can also do that. But you want to make sure that you're not altering your natural energy to receive. You want to make sure that that energy is flowing through you, that you're not blocking the channel. So I would say, unless you are, very familiar, do the things that are easiest to learn yourself first, and then add the layers and the levels later. So, meditation for me and turning my senses inward and just being still and quiet, sometimes listening to downloads, sometimes listening to nothing but, the hush of, heat coming through the furnace filter and also what's happening outside. Just sometimes listening. It depends on when I'm studying, what time of the day, what part of the day I'm studying. And there are, of course, different astrological pairings that you can use for that. But allow your self-study, allow what it is you do to be a full practice. Your practice is important. The way you practice is also important. You have to make sure that you place your own cues of purpose and intention and desire, as well as the things that allow you to be free and feel free, also alongside utilizing the best of resources you have available to you in order to connect these worlds. See, when you're in the physical world and you physically go into meditation, you start to transcend your physical environment, the material of things around you and surrounding you. But since they are there, just not what you're seeing in your meditation, you can also amplify that environment. You can make it as comfortable and as quiet and as sensory rich as possible, and then pair that with your astrological study. So then you're in that environment when you're studying, that environment that feels like it's an outpicturing of who you actually are. You're in that environment when you're studying, but then you also take the time before or after to close your eyes to that environment and just feel that connection that is so prevalent that you are hoping to understand on different levels. And I'm saying these two together because we have to do more than just reiterate what we've learned about astrology. We have to become the living embodiments of astrology consciously, right? We have to, if we're going to keep studying, we have to at some point say, okay, I'm spotting these patterns. They have meaning. They're moving me towards the next level. Or is it just me? Maybe, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just the way I think. But this is definitely how I understand astrology, that it's not just a practice on paper, on chart, or it's not just a gazing into the sky through a telescope or through, a rendering of a chart sample or through an app. It is really a connecting to all of the personality that you have moved through and understood at one point in time, and then moving into the deeper capacities, into the subconscious capacities, and learning who's in there, what's going on there, and where did it come from, maybe, if that's your curiosity. And maybe even start to imagine how this practice and the way that you do this practice is more deeply connected to those who came before you who were in this practice. I started learning that the way that I regard astrology has a very specific ancient connection. I'll probably share that in future videos, but there is a way in which I respond to astrology that is very ancient and very divine. And I had absolutely no idea what that was before I started deeply studying. And the more I started deeply studying, the more right next to it, I started studying, you know, these ancient energies, these roles and responsibilities, these figures throughout history and throughout mythology that definitely connect us to the ways that we understand things now and are still present and prevalent in our current society. So take a practice. Some people may not choose meditation. That's my prescription. But take a practice and pair a practice, have it stack, pair a practice with your astrology self-study. And I'm saying this not only to my students, if you're seeing this video, but I'm also saying this to those of you that are just getting into a thing. Make sure you clear your cache in life in general. You don't need cookies following you everywhere you go, reminding you of where you've been. Sometimes you need to reset and clear the windshield and just see cleanly for the first time for a long time and just say, what does life look like now that I don't have all that stuff that I think about on a daily basis that follows me everywhere I go? What does it look like to see clearly at a distance? To see clearly at a distance inward and outward. What does that look like when I connect to that nature? And I hope this has been helpful for you in some way. Let me know below in the comments how you study yourself, how you study astrology. What are the things you have found to be really helpful, and share that with others. We are here to share our common experience so that we can elevate as a collective. And I want to just thank you again. I'm Stacy Patrice. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to reading your comments, like, share, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Peace.